everybody, right, just doing a tutorial video for Warhammer Total War, as a few friends have asked me to help them out with a few bits and pieces on how the game works, so I thought I'd make a video just running through the basics. Now, I'll probably be teaching you to suck eggs a little bit, just ignore the content that you already know. I'll just be running through everything that I would be doing when I start a campaign to kind of give people a bit of an insight on how to start the game. So, to give you an idea of how the selection of the faction works, this is Empire. A few bits and pieces on how the mechanics work, which are fairly true to the game. These are your top units, as it says there, so these are the ones that are quite useful. Sometimes they're situational, so it depends on what you want to go for. Now, we play in Empire because I believe they're probably the most normal to the other Total War games. I've played pretty much all of them, so I'm hoping that this will be quite easy to pick up on. Now, I've not played Empire, I've played all the other races apart from Dwarves, but I've played the other races as well. So I haven't played Empire, but we'll see how we go. Now, I'm going to go for Emperor Karl Franz, because he's mainly a general, so probably be a little less technical than this guy, which is a metal wizard. So I reckon he's probably got a bit of a different style of play. You get a few faction effects, which you could quite easily work out what they are. So movement range 5%. That's on the campaign map. 10% to right guard, great sword units. Great guard and great sword units. 10% upkeep. That's how much it costs per turn for them, for you to keep them going. These are your starting units, as well as a few others, the more basic units you'll get at the same time. So the handgunners, pretty good range on, pretty good armor piercing on those. You've got the halberdiers, which are again armor piercing and good against cavalry units and large units, so they're pretty decent. The right guard, which I don't know too much about, but they look like heavily armoured shot cavalry. Yeah, there you go, so armoured shield shot cavalry. I'm going to play on normal just to give you an idea of how to play the game. I've played it on hard, and to be honest, I get wrecked, so we'll just go normal. And skip the videos at the beginning, you can watch those yourself, so I don't want to spoil anything. These are just tutorial videos that I'll be doing at the moment. I'll just let it load in.
The green-skinned
I'll
threat.
skip this guy chatting away, because you can listen to that yourself. Okay, so this is the start of the game after the tutorial, first tutorial battle you do. So I've skipped that as well, because you can do that yourself, and actually that's quite a good little start for the game. So I'm going to remove him, which is always good to do. I actually get annoyed with the advisors sometimes, always popping up in the way. It takes up a large chunk of the screen sometimes. So, defeat armies belonging to Emperor, that one, so I'm not going to read it, because I'll probably get it wrong. Now, you can click on this, which will show you where they are. Actually, this shows you where their capital is, I think. This is not actually where they are, because if you look at the mission again, it says defeat an army belonging to the following battle. So you can defeat a civilization or a place, that's fine, or you can defeat an army, which is this guy here. Now when you click on them, you get a kind of a breakdown of what they have in their army compared to what you can see, and you can obviously see only crossbows. So if you look on your army, the best thing to do really is to kind of gauge whether they are better or just as good as yours to what you have in your army. Now, what I tend to do when I first start out is you get a gauge of where you are on the map. So you have a little look from high up, and you're really surrounded. So, I mean, sometimes it's best to ally with some of the people around you. I mean, the enemies are completely encompassing you, so you are in quite a bad situation here. So that's kind of how I look at the map, is you look to see where you are compared to other factions. Then what you tend to want to do is check the missions and see what you got to do next, so where you want to go, and then I look to see what I've got in my main base, which is your home capital, you own the capital of Reichland, which is the area. And these are the different places that are actually in the area. Now when you own all of the places within the region, you get a bonus down here, which means that you can add on extra things. I'm not sure what they are for the Empire, but they seem pretty standard. So you can either go for like a growth with good public order, you've got something for money, and you can get something for recruiting units, so that is dependent on faction. Now the other thing you get as well is this scroll over here, which gives you a breakdown of the entire region's kind of well-being. So you have surplus here, which is useful for when you're building up these buildings. So you can see you've got this surplus cost, which is what you need to grow in order to get up to these higher tier city-states. Not only for those, but sometimes you need them for others as well. So I've just right-clicked here, which will give you a breakdown of what you can purchase for Atteldorf, the capital that you have. And as you can see, I'm up to Atteldorf village, which is this line here. I can only upgrade my buildings to this point. If I want to upgrade them any further, I need to get higher towns, states, so get them higher up and this line will grow. Now one thing to keep in mind, as I find, is that the towns, the smaller places, these guys, will only have up to 3, so you can only go up to town, which means the line will only be up to here, and you can only grow these buildings up to this point. So if you say, for instance, you want to have a stable, you'll only be able to get it in a town up to the livery. You won't be able to get it up to magistracy. So you will miss out on these units. Same with everything else above here, so you'll miss out on all these units if you build them in the town. It's something you need to kind of bear in mind. Sometimes it's best to build everything that's higher tier in your capital, but if you look, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 higher tier buildings, and if you so that we obviously won't be able to build them all. There's a few that you won't be able to build. Got to kind of keep that in mind on where you want to build your city to, or what kind of units you want at the beginning of your game, because the beginning is it's hard because you won't be able to build these higher tier buildings later on in the game, like say mid game, once you start taking out provinces that aren't to do with your region. So you've got to kind of bear in mind what you want to build in your region now in order to make a nice strong army for you to be able to take on other places so you can get the other buildings. Yeah, it's kind of a micromanagement is quite high in the respect of building your civilization. So that gives you that. That's quite a good little breakdown. Now if we look at, we're looking back at this one again and also what we have in the building queue. So next one we have growth, which is how much of this little blue bar grows as it goes up. So we've got 30 at the moment, which that is 30 plus 30 to your 100. I think that only goes up by 100, so every time you get to a next surplus stage you only have 100. Well, we'll have a look at that, I can't remember. Again here, this is something that's quite useful, tax province. So you can remove it to gain public order, you can add it, and it looks like it's 4. It puts it down to low public order, but you get income from it. Now this is another thing that you can look at here as well, as if you remove it. This is also your income. It gives you a breakdown, not the best breakdown, because it tells you how much your total outcomes are compared to your total incomes are. It doesn't tell you how much between that it is, but you can kind of work that out for yourself. It's only really a gauge, it's quite useful though. So if you click it, you can see it's not gone up a lot, but from 2,500, and then you gain total of 2,973, which it's a little bit, especially at the beginning of the game. It's really useful because you're not going to be gaining a lot of gold from attacking people at first. You kind of rely on this to get your gold at the beginning. And then you've got corruption, which these are kind of how religions worked in the other games. And what it does is it affects public order a lot. Now, we are concentrating on Sigmar. Now, we don't need corruption from vampiric corruption, and we don't need chaos corruption, because that will kind of influence your public order. And at the beginning of the game, you really don't want your public order to be influenced. Reason being is that you want your armies away from your cities and towns. You don't want them sat in your cities and towns whilst other people are growing in force against you. So that's the main issue with that part of it. Province effect. Now, every province will have different effects, obviously. This is the effects that you get from Reichland. I think you gain them as well, depending on which towns you take. You can gain more. So this is enables attrition for undead armies, which is quite nice. So if an undead army manages to get all the way over here, they lose more units if they're in a low corrupted area. That's how the undead work. I'm not really going to go through the undead because all the other factions, apart from I don't know about dwarves, have weird little quirks you need to know about in order to play the armies. Okay, so that's the breakdown of that. We also, if we look at here, we can give you a quick overview of what you're getting from this specific place, Aldolf. If we look here, we've got something called pottery. Now, I'm not sure this gives you anything in the sense of buildings, but it gives you trade, which is quite useful if you are allied with someone else. If we right-click on here again, it will give you this breakdown. Now, normally, if you have something, oh, there we go. So if you have something from a province like pottery, you'll get an extra building set, which actually is here. So we've got a clay pit, which is good for money, and oh, there we go. So resource would be for trade, which is quite good because there's not a lot of tradable goods in this game compared to the others. You don't concentrate on trade so much, you concentrate on armies and attacking, which is generally how you get your money in this game. But still, it's quite handy to have a building that will give you money, especially if you're relying on it at one point because there's not a lot to attack because you have got a very small army. Something to keep in mind. Now, these can only be built on the building that has the resource on it. It cannot be built in any of the other places, even if the resource, if the resource is in out of, you can't build it in any of the others. But anyway, okay. So there's a few other bits and pieces you want to look at. So the wheel over here kind of gives you a more of an overview for your civilization. So objectives is the overall winning objectives for the game. You can have short campaign, which I believe is just, it's just there all the time. So you can get to short campaign, and then normally you have like a video and a congratulations, you've got to this point in the game. Do you want to carry on? Yes, no. I think they might have removed that where you can just carry on playing, but we'll see. I haven't got to that bit yet because, as you can see, you've got to control a hell of a lot of places in order to win the short campaign, and all of these, as you can see on the map, are miles away from where you start from. So you've got a lot of places to take, regions to populate. A lot of it's in kind of the northeast area, so you'll have to contend with chaos and undead, obviously other empire factions, and the wasteland. Where is that? I think that's a Britannic. Probably not. Probably just empire. So you got wasteland, and then you got Sylvania, which are the province of the elves, but they are owned by the undead at the moment, so I'm not sure there's any elf factions in this game, which is a bit of a shame. So you've got those two there as well. And then also you've got to protect against chaos, which is up in the wastes, which you've got to protect against them, and ensure that Archon ever chosen is in a wounded state. So that means that if he's killed in battle, then they sit into a wounded state, and you wait for them to come back through out of their wounds and then back onto the campaign map. So that's how that works. And you see these are ticked. That's because you haven't come across them yet. So this will unlock once you see the Chaos factions, or it will unlock once you've completed all these. I believe it's when you get. It's like here, if you own Ever Chosen, then it will unlock. And then I'm not going to go through these, but there's a long campaign, so you can have a little look at these as well. Looks like it's just Destroy the Vampire counts as your long campaign edition, so that's quite a good one. Right, next one would be your technology tree, which is actually not unlocked. You need a rally field in order to get it. Again, you need a rally field to get these ones, and so on and so forth. And you need a barracks for these ones. So there's two different buildings you need for these technology trees. It looks like you kind of have a Empire Infantry leadership, speed. Right, so it gives you upgrades for each of these. Okay, so I'm not going to go through these, but you can read them yourself. They're all pretty self-explanatory, actually. They're quite good at explaining themselves. Cost of buildings. There doesn't seem anything there that's not easily understood. And then we've got treasury, which is, I hardly use treasury, to be honest, because a lot of it you can see in front of you or just see up here. But I suppose it gives you an idea of what provinces the breakdown of where your money's coming from and going to. You got trade as well, which is useful to see, because knowing which factions you trade with, I can't unlock it in the notes, I'm not trading with anyone. It's quite useful to see as well. That's actually quite good, because sometimes if you want to attack an ally that you're trading with, it's good to see how much money you're getting from them before you go and attack them and then realise that you'll run out of money because they were probably your highest earners. And then details gives you like a real good breakdown of everything. Starting treasury this turn. Right, okay. Again, I don't really use this all too much because it's quite easy to work out where your money's going and coming from. Okay. And we have your Empire overview. We'll start over here. So faction power. You've got one army, obviously, and no agents. This is your diplomacy window. Is actually really useful to see who you're at war with, because sometimes this can really grow. Your military allies as well. That's normally quite easy to see because you'll tend to see them on the battle map as blue or green. I think it's blue actually. Your defensive allies are generally, I think again they're green. I can't remember, or they're white. I think whites are just neutral, and not attacked with. Trading partners, so who you're trading with. Again, that's quite useful to see. Who you're trading with. So sometimes you're not always allied with your trading partners. Sometimes you are trading with neutrals, which is quite useful. Details gives you obviously your capital, the province you want to look after and never lose, how many you own, settlements. Again, it's quite self-explanatory. This is an effect I didn't realise. Alright, okay, so this is your original effect that is in the starting window, which is quite good if you ever need to see it. I think this might grow, I don't know. Yeah, so faction summary, diplomacy. I'm going to skip diplomacy, I'll do that in a minute because that's quite a big thing to go through. Offices. Now this looks like a new effect that you get from Empire. I haven't seen this in any of the others, so I don't quite know how they work out, but each of these gives you additional effects to your Empire. So I'm guessing this is where you'll get, it will start to grow with your Empire effects. Some of them are quite useful actually. This one, public order. It's hard to get public order, and it's really good to really keep on top of. So that's a good thing to see. treasury, so affects your money. Spy master affects your agents, I guess. Yeah, so hero effects. Reich marshal. Recruitment, okay. Let's do with your magic. And then your main leader, fella. It's your emperor, sorry. Can I kick him? No. Anyway, so yeah, that's new. I've not seen that before, but we'll probably use that a little bit later on. So diplomacy. Now this is
Relations
quite
with foreign powers may be managed.
Shush. This is quite a big part of the game. As an empire faction, I can imagine diplomacy is quite important compared to a lot of the others like orcs. Where there's an orc there, skull smashers. I can't see. Oh, there was the vampires, which I guess have got very low diplomacy as well. I think that's about it. There's another one there, skull takers. Right, so the ones we're worried about at the moment are the people that are up here. Now, unfortunately, we can't seem to see them. Bit of a shame. Anyway, oh no, might be those guys. Middenland, yeah, so they own a massive section there. Anyway, so we got Empire. So we click on here and we can see who we are friendly with. Now, this doesn't always mean that we are allied. But if we have a look at Telden, whoever that was, can't see him. Or if I click on them, then it will show it. I think. There we go. Teleblackland, however you say it. So this will give you a breakdown of their strength to you. So this is a rank strength. I think it's to you. I believe. Yeah, because strength rank 15. So we're very low. They're 10, so we are on par. We're a little bit lower, I don't know why, but we are a little bit lower. They're 44, so they're quite high compared to us. And so you can adjust the filters as well and see who is the highest on your map that you can see, because if you have a look, you can't see everyone, obviously only people in your area. So if we go back to these guys, which we'll carry on going through. So you got settlements. They got settlements of 2, one more than us, clearly. No treaties, no war targets. These will show you their diplomacy window, which is over here, in here. So it kind of gives you a nice, easy glance overview of what they have. They're not trading with anyone, which is kind of useful for us to know, because if you trade with someone else who, say for instance, might have your enemy as an ally, they're likely to attack you, which means you would then lose your trade agreement, which is quite useful to understand. Here is the relations between you and them. It gives you a nice little breakdown of how happy they are and why they are happy with you, and then again it will do the opposite as well. So here is the relations with Marienburg. Will tell you how unhappy they are and why. So this is giving you a war with the Skull Smashers of 2, which they're happy with. War with Empire Successionists, which is 1, which they're happy with again. But they're not happy with the Trespassers against Marienburg. Now we don't know what that is. That could be anything, because we've only just started the game. Aversion 15, I don't know, they're just unhappy with you for whatever reason. So again, that gives you a minus 29 and makes them unfriendly with you. And now if we look here, we've got 38 to 39, means that they're friendly with you, which is pretty useful for us. So if we click on these guys, we could probably do a diplomacy meeting with them. So we'll click on the
It is
diplomacy button.
good to see fellow sons of the Empire this day.
I love the little speeches sometimes. You get some funny ones. And then if we want to see what we can do for them, really I would like to trade with them because they're right next to my empire, so I can probably defend this trade route here quite easily. Let's have a look. Can I trade? It doesn't look like I can do a trade agreement, which is a shame. I would have liked that, but we could do a non-aggressive. So this is quite useful the way this is worked out, is that you have a non-aggressive pact at the very top, which is generally something that you'll have just below peace treaty. So if you're at war with someone, actually I'll show you that now, so we'll get rid of that, and I will click on these guys who we are at war with. Yeah, we're at war with them. So I'll click on those, I'll go to these, and I'll go to the diplomacy window, which I can't. You cannot negotiate with this faction. That's a real shame. I think that's because I can't see their capital. No, that's weird. I wonder why that is. Anyway, I can have a diplomacy with these guys. There you go. So peace treaty is the only option I will get, and then if I get a peace treaty with them, whereas I have a low outcome of this happening, so this won't actually happen if I click go. There we go. So if you click peace treaty, it'll open everything else up. So if you want to kind of make it a little bit more sweet for them, you can say, I'll join a war against the Bretonians, because they're at war with the Bretonians there. So you can click on that. That's still low, so you've got no chance of getting them on your side as peace treaty. You could offer them monies, so you could probably give them a little bit more. I would say you'll need more than that, but we can try. Yeah, so low still. So if you click on it again, you can then put some more in. You probably put your whole lot in, and it's still low, so there's no chance of that happening. The other problem as well is if that actually changed to moderate, so you could potentially get a peace treaty, and you click go, and then a few turns later, they'll probably attack you or then go back into a war with you because you haven't given them any more money. It's kind of a to and fro sometimes, especially when you've got to pay so much to kind of become a peace treaty with someone. So we'll remove that, and then I'll click cross. We'll go back to these guys and see what we can do. So I'll go to the diplomacy window.
Only Sigmar's god Ulrich can judge it worthy or no.
I want a non-aggressive pact, so we'll see. So that's high. That's quite nice for us. So we'll wonder if we can get anything else. Military alliance. That would be perfect for us because that's a whole big section that we're not going to worry about. Because I reckon I'll probably want to take Reichland, definitely. Then I'll probably want to ally with the dwarves. And I reckon I would like to either push this way to Bretonia and try and take this one, so we got a nice little defence on our backs. Try and ally with Bretonia. The only trouble with backing them into a corner is that as they get big, they'll want to start branching out, and you'll be the next person to branch out too. But that's something we can worry about later on. So my kind of idea is to defend this area, to have a very good ally here, and then I could probably push all the way up to this section here and ally with the dwarfs all the way along. That's my plan. In fact, probably the best plan looking at the map, because you don't want to be enemies with these guys, because if you're enemies with these guys, you've got to defend from this front, defend from this front, and defend from this front, whilst trying to expand, which is not easy. So really, if you are enemies with these guys, you'll probably want to push your front out to the waters so you can't be attacked on this side. So again, that's another bit of micromanagement you've got to think about, is where you want your fight to go. So I am pretty happy with that. Now, to give you an idea of what these give you, a non-aggressive pact is where you are not allied with them, but they agree that they won't attack you if your army is in a province, say an enemy province, the same enemy province, they won't attack you. You can fight on the same map, but you won't attack each other. Military alliance is where you, again, won't attack each other, and you don't have the... I don't know how much of a difference that is from that. Non-aggressive pact improves your relationship between factions. It is ideal first step for building a relationship. Military alliance removes the diplomacy penalty for trespassing on another faction's territory. Okay. So if you go through another faction's territory that you're not at war with, then you can incur diplomacy, low diplomacy ratings against them if they're allied with them or non-aggressive pact with them. Defensive alliance is where you're sworn to protect them if they're under attack. That tends to lower if you don't help them out. You can also request, there's like a little banner you can request people to help you attack areas with, which is kind of useful now that you've got the AI idea to help you out. Instead of the other games where you didn't have that, you basically just relied on them to work out who that you wanted to help with. Military alliance is really useful. It means that you can walk your armies through their own lands without incurring any faction problems. So if you want to, say, go on a crusade through their land to another side where the enemy is on the other side of their province. So if I wanted to go over to here and Ostermark and attack Ostermark, then I could walk through their province, get to here without them having a problem with it. Join Confederacy. Now, I think this is like where you... Hold on, let me read it, because I haven't actually done this before. Ask of affection is join your Confederacy. If you are strong enough, accept the offer, your faction will be assimilated into their own... Oh, nice. So you will own them as part of your own province. That's pretty useful. And it's low, so it's not likely to happen. I don't quite know how to do that, but it seems to only be there if you're in this state where you've got no pacts with them, no alliances with them. I think the other one is a vessel, where they are their own faction, but they give you monies, and they are in a high state of alliance with you. They tend not to turn. It's quite useful if you've got one tiny little province that you don't really want to own in the middle of all your other provinces. They won't tend to be unstable because they will just build up their army and sit there and not be able to do anything. But they'll probably walk their army through your place as well. Anyway. So I want to go for a military alliance, which is moderate, so that's the highest we can do. And military access, which is always very useful, because if you want to get somewhere fast, then you won't have to worry about walking through their province. Yeah, we'll do that. So we'll see if I can get that, which is rejected. It's a bit of a shame. But if I go back to it, I can try it again. Don't think I get any penalties. No. So let's do military alliance, moderate. Not going to get that. We will do defensive alliance and military access. Really could do with that, which we can. So defensive and military access, which is really helpful. So they're quite happy with us now. Now we should see if we can do a trade agreement, which we can't. Bit of a shame. Okay, so we'll go back. The reason being is that we can't do trade with them, as it shows here. The only ones we can do it with, I believe, are the ones that are greyed out here. So Nordland. We can, which is a shame because the trade is from here to here, so it's quite far. But we can see if we
Greetings,
can do
my
it.
countrymen.
Yeah, trade agreement,
On this fine
which is low. It's not likely to happen, so we'll get rid of that, get rid of that. It's a bit of a shame. These two, they're unhappy with us, so I'm not sure we're going to be able to get a good trade agreement out of them.
Do not waste my time with petty talk. Make your offer and be done.
No, not likely. Is there anyone who's... I'm looking here to see if anyone is either neutral, like these guys, or who is green and has a trade, which is probably unlikely. Yeah, they're too far. It's not going to be able to get that. I do want to become allied with those guys, which is in the plans.
It's late in the day for the Empire to send its ambassadors to my
Moderate.
door.
There's a chance. It's not a lot, but it's something. Let's see if we can get it. We've got a trade agreement, which is good. As you have a trade agreement, you will gain faction points here from them as time goes on, which is quite good. So we'll leave this and go out. So that's a diplomacy. It's a good map to look at, and there's actually there's more to diplomacy map. So if we look here, I'll just go through these. We've got filters, military force filter. There we go. So we've got a military force down here, which is the bad guys. We've got hero filter. I mean, there's no heroes running around at the moment. Settlement filter. So there we go. We can see which settlements are on the map, which is quite helpful when you know your surroundings. Siege filter, no one's under attack, so that's good. Resource filter, and we should have one here because we've got pottery, but I can't seem to see any popping up. So there's probably not a lot of resources around. There we go, there's quite a few now. They're underneath the banner, that's why. There we go. It's a bit awkward, but if we zoom out far enough, we can kind of see them coming into fruition. There you go, so you can see the settlements now and also the resource. Bit of a shame you got to zoom out so far just to see it, but yeah, it's there. This is for, the overview is for all these. Now these are quite useful. I do use these every now and again. I remove all those. I will put the settlements on because it's good to see them. But if we look here, so we've got ownership. So who owns which provinces? So these guys own, these guys in blue will own these. And if we zoom out, we can kind of see who owns what by the colours, which is quite useful. Diplomacy. Now this is the one I probably use the most. Now we are blue with these guys because we are in a defensive agreement. These are red because these are enemies, and the yellows are your own factions. Greys are neutral, so everything that's grey here and here is just neutral provinces to you. I do use that quite a lot. It's very useful, especially when everything starts becoming red. It's good to see who doesn't like you and who does. So attrition. This doesn't really count too much for us at the moment because there's no army in an enemy zone, so you don't see. But these are the zones that you'll get attrition in. These are the zones that you won't, and also yellow. So there's a key here that helps you out. Wealth. I think this only relies on you as your faction. When you start to grow, you can kind of see little spots that are in this key, so high to low. Public order, very useful, especially as your civilizations gets bigger. Once you start owning a lot of places, it's good to kind of get a breakdown of who is happy in a province and who isn't. Oh, okay. I'll have to have a look at that when my empire starts to grow. Growth is useful when you get, again, higher in your civilization, because it's good to see who has the highest growth when you can't grow a city anymore. So if you've got full buildings in all your cities, you don't really worry about growth anymore. So you might want to look to see if there's buildings in there that you can remove and replace. corruption, vampire corruption is only in obviously the vampiric areas at the moment, but that will start to spread, and it can spread into other provinces that aren't owned by vampires, because they can spread their corruption. Same with chaos, but we can't see any because the chaos are up here and probably not even started yet. Winds of magic. Now this is useful when you are in a fight scenario, so I think that's kind of about here, so fairly lit, kind of a bit below average. I don't really worry about this so much because it just happens. I don't really follow fights where winds of magic are. I suppose it could be useful, but I don't really rely on magic as a massive mechanic. So yeah, so that's quite good. I tend to leave it on this because it's good to see who's upset with you. As the game goes on, people become upset with you and you don't realise who it is. It's always good to jump back to this map to see who's just gone at war with you if you don't recognise the faction, because there are a lot of factions to keep an eye on and I can't always remember all of them, so it's quite good to use this map. Right, and that's pretty much what this does, so we'll go out of here. Now there is another map here which I will show you, which is this one, which is the overview. It's the same but without the diplomacy bit, which is kind of depends on what you want to use really. I mean, sometimes I tend to just use diplomacy map because it gives you everything you need from that map and more. So I do kind of find it a little bit. Oh, you can lower these as well, which I didn't realise, so you can see more on the map. But yeah, I use the diplomacy map more than I use that one up there. It just gives you more. So that's that for that. So that you can lower and raise. This is your main map, which you can zoom in and out, so go in and out. You can also move the map around. You can double click on the map and go to where you want to go. Double click to where you want to go. And you can do like an overview of who owns what in what province, so you can kind of do that and see what's going on. Right, so up here you've got some very useful tools. I'll give you a overview of what they are and why they're useful. So missions and quests, very useful. This gets very big and there's lots of different missions going on, and sometimes if you're low on cash they're good to do because they give you a nice bit of cash here. So if I was to attack this army and defeat it, I will get that nice little pocket of 1,000 coins, which is always very useful. Normally you get one on every faction, actually, is like a first little kind of Easter egg or thing that makes you, give you a bit of guidance. Events. Now this is useful after you've done a turn, so once you've done your turn you get a load of events, and sometimes it's useful to go back to see what the events were. So I tend to find it useful for skill points. Sometimes I find it useful to see who has gone to war with me. If we go through these, I can probably tell you. So missions, which we know of, is the first thing that popped up. So that's good to see when I got that mission. Military access. So this is our diplomacy that we had with Tablet-Kekland, whoever they are. So like I said, it's good to see who is happy with who. I don't really keep an eye on other factions who have allied with other factions, because that can get it can bog the game down a lot and it's hard to keep an eye on. But you can click on this if you ever want to see who it is. So that will go to there. We'll just go back. Faction encounters. Don't really keep an eye on these. Some of the rest make war with them. Yeah, so that's talking about the guys that. Alright, okay, so they've gone to war with them. Yeah, I don't really keep an eye on that because that's generally about other allies. Again, it gets a bit confusing and can bog you down. Defensive alliance, so this is another talking about the alliance we just had. A trade agreement with Bretonian, so again you can click on the zoom too, so you can see who it is. And you can with those. So that's your events. Now you'll have loads of events. You'll have things like agents, and they're all in there, which is very useful to go back to. Forces. Now, as you get more and more armies, more and more agents, this is very, very useful because you can do quite a few things. So you can either zoom to the army, you can see how much movement it has. This is sort by size. Okay, so this is the size of the army. That's the name of the person, that's your portrait, and also this is quite useful. So if there's like a little arrow on here, you can click on this and go to your skill tree. Now I'm going to come back to this because this takes a little bit of explaining. So that's your skill tree there. Next bit, provinces. Again, very useful. So this is all your provinces. Contested province. Unsure why, but it is. This shows you your public order, so the little arrow either be green or red. So red is lowering because it is in -2, and that's because of taxes, as you can see there. Green is raising, so it's going up. Also the face changes colour, so it's grey at the moment because it's in the middle. Green is in positive figures and red is in minus figures. Wealth obviously gives you a bit of a breakdown, and that is its wealth. These are all the other factions that are near you that you can see. Kind of useful to see sometimes. Don't really concentrate on this too much. It's more to do with my own provinces. I find it a lot more useful for. And then you get known factions, which don't really use because I use diplomacy window. Not really something I tend to keep an eye on. I suppose if you're really good at micromanaging your provinces, then it's quite useful to see. I guess that would work really well with your events, so to see who is gone allied with who and who's at war with who. So that I don't really use that one. But provinces useful later on when you get big. Armies definitely useful later on when you get more armies and agents. And events useful for after the game, after you've done your turn, and this is useful just for coming back and seeing what monies you can get from it and stuff. And sometimes you get other equipment and bits and pieces. Okay, so forces. If I click on here, this is your points. Now you can get these for agents as well as your army leaders. As you kind of gain experience, you'll get pips. Or skill points, sorry, which you can place in all of these. The ones that are chained at the top here, these are your agent's main skills. Very good to keep an eye on. So again, as you can see there, this one is the Reichland Rune Fang, and you can only unlock this at level 8. As it explains. Now, this kind of gives you a breakdown of what it does. They're all pretty useful to explain. So melee attack is +6. That gives you benefits to these, which is your character stats. Melee attack, if you want to know what they are, you can hover over them and it gives you an idea of what they are. This is kind of like your weapon skill or your ability to fight. So his ability to fight. You have your weapon damage, which isn't on here. Oh yeah, sorry, weapon strength, there it is, which is here, so that's how much damage it does when you do hit. Public order in local provinces. Now agents and also like generals have these type of things where you can help in provinces as well. Useful sometimes depending on what type of character you're building. So public order is useful for this guy because when you go and attack a province and say you occupy it, it can lower the public order for as many turns as you're in the area. You don't have to be in town or city. It helps in the area that you're stood in, which is very useful as an army because you're lowering public order all over the place. Post-battle loot amount. Not sure what that is. That's a bit new to me. Anyway, not too sure. But the next one is an ability, which is the Rune Fang ability, which is shown underneath as the ability details. This is a activation skill, as you can see by the duration timer. The passive ones are called instant, I think, and they don't have a timer, and they don't have a timer in the top right corner either, which is how long it takes for it to come back around again. So the duration is 18 seconds, and also the refresh rate is 135. It's quite a long time, but it's a very good skill to have. As you can see, it gives you percentages. Percentages always useful than just pluses, because it kind of scales as you get more points in the ability. Splash attack damage, amazing, really good, because it's a one unit running around in the map, and it does area effect damage, which is very good. Armor piercing damage, always very useful. There's a lot of armor in this game, so that's very useful to have. Weapon damage, again, very useful to have. Increases his weapon damage as a percentage. Now it's quite high, so you get quite a lot from that. Just one thing to note with these is that these little pips here. Now when you put a skill point on, it puts a pip in there, and if you can see, you've got 3 pips here. Now I didn't realise this when I first started, but you can hover over and see what you get from these pips, as you can see here. In level 3 you get 30, and as level 6 you get 6. You can put more than 1 pip in. I did not know this, so that's something that's probably useful to know. They don't all have it, like here, hold the line only has 1, and so on and so forth. You have to have 4 pips in here in order to go to the next one. This doesn't count, which is a bit of a shame, so you have to have 4 in here to go to the next one. You tend to find this is to do with your army, this is to do with the unit, and this is to do with the campaign map movements and bits and pieces that is to do with what you do. These are obviously like very good skills to have. So my kind of tip is to recognize what you want to use this agent for. As you get more armies, I tend to versatile them to do certain things. So for my first army, I tend to concentrate on the army, because most of the time you will be attacking using this guy to take provinces and do a lot of the grunt work at the beginning of the game. So I tend to concentrate on leadership. Leadership is massive. You need leadership. It's very, very important, because if your army runs away, they're not fighting. So you need to make sure they stand and fight to the fewest men that are left in the unit. So that's quite useful here. There are a few others that you get. Leadership, there you go. That's good for your leadership. A good skill to work with, that one, Rally, and also that one, Inspire, is the aura size. There you go. So brass lunged. The character aura size plus 10%, plus 20, and plus 40, which is amazing. And that means that when you look at your agent in the battle map and you click on him, he has a circle around him. That is his aura. That kind of, the aura gives different things, but it mainly gives leadership in that area. So if people are stood, so if your army is stood outside of that aura, they won't gain benefit from your agent's leadership skills. So it's damn good to get that raised up as much as you can. Anyway, I'm not going to go through these too much. I'm just going to give you an overview of some of the ones that I found that tripped me up a bit. So as you can see here, the recruitment cost to Lord's army is only to this agent's army, because he is the Lord of this army. That's what it would affect, so on and so forth. Local provinces, so obviously local provinces mean the area that the province he is based within. Wound recovery. Now when your agent gets killed, like your main hero agent gets killed, he will be in a wounded state, and this is helpful to get him back into the fight again. That's about all that's kind of confused me. Don't like this. Missile resistance. Kind of useful if you're getting picked off, but normally only for players, not AI, because they're quite standard when it comes to the AI of how to predict them. Battle effects. This is very good to keep an eye on. This gets massive as he grows in skill level. And this is affected from this is affected from this, obviously by the arrows, and this is affected by this. Haven't really used these. I haven't replaced my Lord before. Okay, so I guess as you get armies and agents, they can go in here as well. So that's new. Did not know that. I think that's about it, really. Yeah. So that's kind of a nice brief overview of your starting point on the map and how to kind of get yourself started. Now I'm going to leave this video and we'll see if I can get any feedback on what more they want to see, and I'll go through and explain a little bit more. So thank you very much and goodbye.